Welcome to the fourth year of Grow with Inbound. Our first 2 years were live events in central London, but this year, like last year, we're fully virtual. And this year we are, of course, fully international with interviews today from Singapore, UK, Cape Town, and the USA. We have 10 different sessions running today with 20 fantastic presenters who'll be joining from 4 different continents and all numerous different time zones. Today, you're joining marketers, salespeople, and customer service experts, as well as many of our friends from other HubSpot partners that we work with from around the world. We're so pleased that you've been able to join us. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. We hope you'll find this both educational and informative. Now, let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to my guest, Gregor Hufenreuter. As head of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland for HubSpot, Gregor controls and expands the rapidly growing business of HubSpot in Central Europe, both in direct sales and via the partner channel. Gregor studied at the Free University in Berlin, where he got his master's in cultural and history studies, as well as journalism. His career built up in sales and service within the technology sector, and Gregor became the director of corporate sales at Sugar CRM in 2013, before moving to HubSpot to become their director of sales for the DACH region from 2017 onwards. Outside of work, Gregor tells me that he enjoys traveling, art, music, and pop culture. And he tells me that his favorite app at the moment is TikTok. But we'll get into that a bit later. A very warm welcome to you, the marvelous Gregor Hufenreuter.
Thank you very much, Bob. What an introduction. It's really nice to see you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Good to have you here, Gregor. I have to start by asking you about that slide that we zapped past, the one that said unsuccessful novelist.
Yeah, that's right. So I just put it in there. So I kind of explained a little bit. When people look me up for some reason, I don't know why they're doing this, they come across this Gregor Hufenreuter, who has been a historian, wrote books and articles and presented lectures and has worked on universities. And I had an interesting situation a couple of 2 years ago in Vienna, presenting with a partner and we wanted to talk about conversational marketing in front of 150 people. And they introduced me in a similar way like you just did. But they didn't give me a heads up how the introduction looks like. So they started with, this is Gregor Hufenreuter, HubSpot Director, Sales DACH. But make no mistake, there's another Gregor Hufenreuter who is a historian, and he wrote books about this, but these are 2 different persons. As I said, in front of 150 people. And I said, no, that's actually me. So, and they were totally irritated. It was a nice kind of icebreaker to, make the very stiff audience very cheering up and very loose. And then we had a nice conversation about this kind of particular piece I studied in Austria and how it looked like there, and how I was working in the library in Austria, which is a very, very nice library in Vienna, the regular big one. It was really nice. It was a nice conversation starter, and then we actually went into the conversational marketing piece. But yeah, that's right. I studied, as you said, I was a historian, studied history and art history, and wrote a couple of books. And that's the reason why people sometimes stumble across this information and have no way to just put it together. But it was a nice preparation for what I'm doing now. Because you
From
start
history to HubSpot.
Questions. Sorry, what?
From history to HubSpot.
From history to HubSpot, yeah. That's right. You learn how to raise questions. I think that's something we're doing all the time. We try to understand how we figure out our business and how we can just adjust situations like COVID and data security and everything else. And so knowing how to apply questions and raise questions and formulate questions actually helps. So it's an interesting recommendation.
Well, you mentioned Austria in your introduction, and we're all watching the news with great interest and concern. Things aren't too great in Austria at the moment. How is the German marketplace for you? How heavily is COVID affecting business?
At the moment, I think we have more this kind of second year in how people cope with this. I think we all have seen the typical situation in the tech industry that COVID actually was big of a tailwind. So it helped us to have entertaining conversations and to facilitate help for the companies who wanted to digitalize and move on and figure out ways how to still serve the customers and grow in a situation where other industries and companies were heavily challenged by this change, by the lockdown in particular, by the insecurity, everything. We are still seeing this somehow. We actually see a slight uplift at the moment after everybody got vaccinated this year. There was a slowdown. Everybody went on vacation and enjoy the summer, which is reasonable. And I actually did the same. So we saw that the interest in companies like HubSpot slowed down a little bit in terms of we are now looking at something else, and which makes total sense. It picks up now a little bit, and I think that's the sentiment. People understand that they still need to go through with all these kind of aspects of becoming more digital and moving their entire tech stack to something that can still serve their customers in the best way, because everything is still looking and going in this direction. And obviously, we have no clear idea how this will end and how many waves we are going to see and how this is going to be normalized. And no one has an idea when we are going to have it back to normal eventually. So at the moment we see this, and for the people itself, it's exhausting. You know this. It's similar in the UK. We have this kind of resistance towards these kind of restrictions and limitations. But the people will figure it out. So I trust the common sense at a certain point. I live in Berlin. We have to be very careful. The city is dense, and therefore we're used to this situation. But we have a similar increase of the incidency as well.
You allude to certain parts of business and doing well, having to digitize, or perhaps more rapidly than they would otherwise have done. Have you seen any specific markets adopting technology like HubSpot faster than others?
I think what we have seen recently is that obviously smaller companies, smaller B2C and smaller B2B companies needed to do this rapidly. So overnight, literally, so they invested a lot of manpower and money into solutions to survive at a certain point with their businesses. And the other step is they combined this very often with anticipated changes, highlighted they talked a lot about in the past. So what we have seen, in particular, publishing, finance, and manufacturing in particular, COVID has been a big push for them to start to rethink the processes, in particular, how they communicate to their customers, how they respond to the challenges from competitors from the US and mostly from the Asian Pacific area. As you know, we have a very strong manufacturing belt in Germany. It's a very strong industry with a couple of thousand companies, somewhere between 100, 200, 400 employees. And they had a situation where in Germany, it's very regular that you are, in terms of adopting new technologies, Germany is always 4 or 5 years behind in comparison to the UK in particular, or the Nordics, or the Benelux territories. And it was about time, actually overdue, because the competition is strong and these companies need to rethink how they actually communicate with their customers. So it's not a very growing business. So you know your customers, but you have to compete against others and you have to retain your customers. And I think what they used COVID in a very particular way to just rethink how they communicate, how they cross and upsell, and how they maintain their relations to their customers. And we have seen a significant spike in these industries, just adopting and trying to apply HubSpot in all kinds of ways, marketing, sales, and services, to improve their relations and to improve their ability to sell and to be successful in the business.
Interested, you're in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Berlin's very much renowned as a high tech city as such.
Yeah.
Does that mean that HubSpot has a greater uptake within that region, within the Berlin area, than elsewhere, or
Yeah, you can say Berlin has been the first hub for us in terms of customers. We have a person here who is just building relations to VCs and incubators. They help to startups to just grow and to be founded. We have a huge footprint in the tech industry in Berlin. We have about 3,500 startups here, and I think we have a very strong footprint here in terms of brand knowledge and customers, to be honest. And we have, on top of this, we have a growing business with regular customers in Berlin who are mostly in the food industry and manufacturing and services. But the majority is obviously other SaaS companies and all kinds of startups and tech companies. So that we built a little bit in terms of brand and on top of employer recognition. So we had a couple of events we hosted. We had a Sales Masters initiatives we conducted where we actually helped the community to share our thoughts, and we helped them to have an idea what HubSpot is doing and how we are doing things. And it gave us a good footprint and actually the trust of the Berlin tech industry that we will not just be someone who is selling to them, but become a partner in terms of how they approach business and how they can excel. And this was a really nice experience in the first two years where we just not just took, but we gave back a little bit. It was a nice experience for both sides, I guess.
Do you find that there is a cultural difference or divide even between East and West and North and South? For those of us who aren't German and don't necessarily understand the background and the scale of the German geography and economy, can you give us a little insight into that?
Sure. It's something we're all talking all the time about it. There is obviously this kind of industry belts. We have this in the south and in the middle part of the western territory of Germany. We have this industry, food industry, and manufacturing mostly. Very strong industries, very dominating industries. And in the north, we have publishing a lot and smaller industries. And then we have this kind of cultural difference between the north and the south, and obviously because of the history, a little bit between the east and the west. The north and the south is very interesting because if you talk to people in Germany on a regular basis, where would you live in Germany? It's very related to the culture both of these territories represent. You have in the north a little bit this kind of more distant, more, people call it stiff behavior. It's more direct. It's very rational, I would say, and I would describe it. It's very formal. And in the south, you have a little bit less formal way to talk to each other. It's more building a quick relation and trusting and enjoying this relation instead of being, a little bit distanced. So they break the distance more often, and they have a different pace in terms of making business. And this is certainly a difference when you approach people you want to do business with in these territories. You need to at least consider this, if this could be a point where you a little bit adapt into the conversation and mirror what they need to feel comfortable in the conversations. And I have lived in Munich for 4 years when I was with Sugar CRM. And for me, as someone who was based for 20 years in Berlin now, and they are more Prussian and a little bit more, Berlin is different. It's relaxed. It's a cultural city. It's very diverse, but still, it's a city where you're more formal and you keep your distance, and you have a different way. Munich was really interesting cultural situation for me. People were very open, very direct, almost harsh, but with a certain amount of fun and humor. And this helped to understand how they actually feel. And I like the South. I'm a big fan of the North as well, but I'm feel very comfortable with the South at the moment already.
Yeah, I think it's very plain to those that know the UK of the North, the difference between North and South in approach and accent. I am, of course, a Southern softie for those watching. Culture is a very important aspect to HubSpot overall, and recruitment. I know you've been growing like crazy in Berlin and all over. How do you find that? How do you hire people who are aligned with HubSpot values? Do you have any wisdom that you can share and around that recruitment process?
Yeah, sure thing. We have. What I would like always to see, so very important is for me when people see about HubSpot culture, we are very inviting. HubSpot try to have a very open environment where people can make mistakes, they learn, they get feedback, and they come. I told it, come as you are. Yeah, be yourself, by yourself. Don't pretend, because we need to see who you are, and we need to work with you and not with someone or with the person you want to be. So we need your true self, and that's the actually the aspects we're looking for when we hire. We're not looking for the best of the best, and we're not looking for people who are determined to become something. We're looking for people who want to grow and who actually try to figure it out and who have a certain idea and who are inspired by HubSpot, or just have a vague idea. Both is fine. What I always check is these aspects of curiosity. I want to see people who learn and who are eager to learn, who are actually open to learn. Even if it's not a driver, I'd like to see that someone is curious and is asking questions and is actually interesting in lives, in businesses, and how things are done or maybe not done, and just learn by just running with it. And that's a very important component for us. We are checking, because of this, we need to see if someone is interested in feedback, not just giving feedback, but taking feedback, is looking for feedback proactively. So these are the two things I always investigate a lot: the feedback piece and the kind of curiosity learning piece is for me very important. What I look as well is something that is not necessarily written down in the attributes we're looking, but I always look for a piece of generosity, someone who is actually enjoying the success of others and general success, enjoys a good team situation and how this person can help to improve performance and life of others, and therefore performance and life of their own team they're assigned to. And that's important for me. In sales, when I come from sales, people are usually very driven by their own achievements, and that's good. That's what we need. We need this kind of determination to be very successful on their own. But I love to see this component that they actually enjoy the success of others as well. They are helping for others to become successful. And therefore, these kind of generosity piece is very important.
That's very interesting. That's an aspect I hadn't considered. It's certainly from our perspective, it's a hugely difficult process in recruiting the right sort of people. And I somebody very famous and much wiser than I once said that it's all about personality. That you can teach people just about anything. Problem is you can't teach them not to be an asshole. And fundamentally, it's about finding the right style of person from a personality perspective.
Yeah, that's right.
We share you and I share a common interest in and around information security, and I wanted to ask you about your background in that area.
Yeah, it's thanks. Yeah, that's an interesting piece. So you saw that, maybe you saw a couple of these companies on the slides when you introduced me. I have worked for 2 IT security companies in Germany when actually the internet got started, 2000 something, 1999, 2000, 2001, when everybody got their first email address and stuff like this. I worked in an email security and web security companies who prevented spam and helped B2C customers or B2B customers to avoid the first kind of traps of all kinds of threats. People started right away with these kind of spam and kind of denial of service attacks and stuff like this. And it always has been a big topic for us because we worked with B2C customers as well. And they were pretty sensitive. And we actually were asked to learn how to, how these kind of data security started. In Germany in particular, it's a very, very sensitive topic. So we are looking at data security from a legislational point of view of now like 50 years. The first kind of Data Protection Act was implemented in Hessen, one of the districts in Germany, in 1970, and the Federal Data Protection Act came into place 1977. Since then, we have things like the TOMs, who are now a pretty regular standard in the GDPR. We all know, and a very popular and a very everybody concerning topic became. Data security became a very popular topic for everybody in the 1980s when we had a census. So we are trying to count our population, and it was an official attempt from the government to actually count everybody and pull some data about this person. And there was a huge movement in Germany just to refuse this attempt, and combined with this very, very popular discussion about data security and why people didn't want this, and what is the company, the government doing with the data they are actually asking you to submit. And since then, we have a very sensitive thinking and behavior around data security and how data is treated.
It's been a big thing as far as HubSpot is concerned, to the extent that HubSpot's made a substantial investment a huge investment in the last year or so. Can you tell us a little bit about the new EU data center that HubSpot have put into, I believe, Frankfurt? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's Frankfurt. It's an interesting fact that it's Frankfurt. When I started at HubSpot, we debated this: where is the data center, or where the data center could be applied? Because of Dublin, the UK, Germany, they all have data centers we could leverage or we could use, and we started to talk about Germany because it's such a sensitive topic in Germany, and even if it's an increasing sensitive topic in other territories, I think a little bit the peak is Germany at the moment, and always has been in this regard. So when the Privacy Shield was considered invalid last year, HubSpot made this decision. We discussed 4 years already to actually put this data center in place, and not because GDPR is actually expecting this. We all know that that's not the case. It's two reasons for this. I think we had always the idea to have multiple data centers and data hosting centers across the globe. HubSpot is growing heavily on a scale that is, unprecedented, I would say, in the tech industry after 15 years. It's really impressive how we're growing and how many customers we are still signing up, and it's not ending at the moment. The complexity of HubSpot is increasing in terms of the products, and the ability of the product is increasing. So it was, at a certain point, a rational idea to say, okay, we need several of these kind of data hosting centers across the globe, just for to a little bit to balance everything and to have these kind of hubs globally. And we have seen what happens if the internet is down in certain territories globally, then you have an issue, and you can balance peaks like this if you have more than one. The second thing is, of course, due to the Privacy Shield invalidation, it was clear that even if it's not a legal requirement, people will become more sensitive towards the topic. And it's, for a lot of companies, not even an irrational aspect. It's something they have in their own policies that they would love to see, and they need the hosting of the data in Europe or in Germany even. And we cannot overrule these kind of internal policies, because everybody is, if they use SaaS providers, everybody is supposed to have or to inform their customers what is happening with the data. And it's usually in the fine print somewhere they have to say, okay, we're using HubSpot, the data is here and there, and people read this. So we can imagine that a few of these companies who deal with very data sensitive companies, in particular in the finance sector, they wouldn't do business well with us if it's in the US hosted, even if it's not required to be in Germany or to be in Europe. And therefore, it's a rational act to expect a hosting in Europe. And in particular, Frankfurt, as the financial kind of district of Germany, it's a valid psychological decision. But for us, we have a very good provider there who helps us to maintain this kind of environment in the best way we can think of. And therefore, we made the decision for Frankfurt and for the hosting center there.
Interesting. When will customers be able to migrate from the US resource into the EU data center? Yeah. It's active now, running now?
Exactly. It's active since July this year. So all the new customers we are signing up are actually on this kind of new data center already. And we have a couple of customers who move, but in a kind of first beta situation, but only a handful. The majority of the customers will be migrated high likely in the second half of the next year. During the course of 2022, we are aiming for a kind of very seamless migration path. So it's not disturbing your business. It's very solid in terms of the experience. So you don't have data losses or anything else. So this is something we would like to assure, of course. And then we are expecting this to be highly sufficient in the second half of the year. But if possible, we will start earlier. And that's at the moment the path. So the idea is to have the majority of the European customers migrated in the next year.
So come mid-2022 is sort of roughly the time frame you're talking about.
Yes.
Will customers need a new HubSpot portal in this process?
I don't think so. So it's going to be the old one, including all the old data, everything they have done there is reflected in the instance that is moved. I don't think it's an entire new one. So it's a kind of a clone or something. But honestly, don't let me talk about this. I haven't really seen the most recent update on how we are going to do this. So it's just rambling here. So, but it's as far as I know, it's a fully. So it's the same kind of hub they will left, and in the morning they will start with.
We've been involved in some of the initial trials and pilot, as it were.
So you can say
things seem to have moved very smoothly. Do you see other benefits for customers in EU having their data here?
I think the benefit will be that we are that the response time is much faster. If you look at the data, the number of just the sheer amount of data that one hub or one data center needs to process in the US, I think there would be at a certain point we would have seen delays or longer response times. This is not going to happen. So people in using the European data center will always have the same kind of experience and immediate work with no delay with HubSpot. So this is high likely things they will appreciate. When I worked with Sugar CRM 4 years back, we always had sometimes ping times due to the growth of Sugar CRM that started to become more challenging in this regard. It's an experience. I'm really happy that we avoid this for European customers.
And have you seen that some customers have had that fear removed by the fact that their data is here, and they're now considering HubSpot where it was a factor previously that they were reticent about?
Yeah, it has been a factor. So we had customers who actually stopped signing HubSpot because of it, and we knew about these customers. It's not the majority, for obvious reasons, but if HubSpot, or since we're now going slightly upmarket, we are addressing customers in this kind of mid-market area, up to 500, up to 1,000 employees. in these kind of more sensitive industries like manufacturing, finance, banking. We had more customers in comparison to smaller customers who said, okay, actually that's not doable for us at the moment. Now we see some serious progressions here. They come back, we can address them. We have now a solution for you, and they start immediately conversations. So there is a serious amount of companies who are now using HubSpot because of the European data center, and that's really, really good, really impressive. And I'm actually very happy about it, because it wasn't quite clear if that's immediately happening or if they take their time. But they did an assessment of the data, of the documentations we provided in this regard, and they were happy with everything. Our legal team did a great job preparing and providing everything needed. And so far, I have not seen any kind of concerns in regards to the new DPA, data process agreement, and everything else around it. So it's really good work, and people enjoy it and are happy to join now, and that's great news.
Well, I know you know that I'm excited about information security, because we've just spent the best part of 12 months putting the company through ISO 27001 accreditation to achieve our information security badges. And getting those in place for all 5 of our locations was no small feat in itself. That, alongside of the EU data center, we believe will make enterprise scale businesses feel a lot more secure about doing business with both a secure partner, an information security aware partner, and with the data center in Frankfurt. Do you see a similar view that more and more large enterprise clients put information security at the top of their list in terms of requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a bit of not a hygiene factor, but it's a mandatory thing for them to do. Liabilities, but on top, again, they have to deal with their own customers, and they will look into this. And I think that's the reason it's highly important for you that you have done this ISO certification, because they're looking at all parties, not just the vendor itself, but the partner they are using and they want to partner with over the years has to apply the same kind of security measures like they're expecting for themselves and like they expect for the vendor. So that's something we are seeing actually a lot, that partners are looking into this, trying to understand how they can actually make sure that they are, from an organizational point of view, in a similar way, provide the same security like the customer is expecting and providing to their customers, and the vendor itself is trying to achieve. So that's a very important component, will always stay a very important component. And it's considering the current situation around data security and how it's actually picking up as a topic in the US, for an example, it will not go away at all. So we can see that in territories where data privacy was neglected or a less of an important part and topic in the past, it becomes now more and more important. And you can see that these kind of negligence in terms of how to treat data and how people feel that their data is used against their will and against their knowledge is certainly something that will drive the discussion more and more. And we will see an increasing sensitivity around this beyond Europe.
That's very interesting. Well, we certainly share your interest in that respect, and we're working on some exciting new activities in Germany, which I hope to be able to tell you all about soon. We're coming very rapidly up towards the end of our time. It flies by, doesn't it? We have a few more minutes. But I wanted to just talk in general, come away from the security aspects and just talk about whether you have advice for people in general around business, general advice in 2022. What do you think people should be focusing on?
That's a good one. I thought about this a lot, actually. It's something when I talk to my partners or to the customers themselves, when I talk to my peers, my friends, I think from a personal point of view it's something I think about it, how we're going through COVID time, this kind of second year, almost a third year, to be honest, and how we're dealing with this and how we find peace with a total change in our regular life. For businesses, I would say it's highly important to pick up where they left in case they slowed down and the digitization of their businesses. I think now it's pretty obvious that we don't have the end at a certain point anywhere near. So I think it's for them to stay competitive and to actually make this kind of full cycle into a fully digitized company is absolutely crucial to at least be prepared and to find the best way to communicate and to serve the customers. And that's certainly something I would strongly recommend. We still, if you look at these SaaS numbers in all industries across Europe, in particular in these kind of territories like Germany, it's still way behind. So we are not even close to a number where I would say we should feel comfortable that people have actually done everything necessary to help their businesses to become an online business at a certain point. And it's something we are still not quite done yet with. So I think that's certainly something where they shouldn't jump the gun. So think about what you actually need and take your time, but start and get going and don't stop. So we have seen it now. We have understood it now how this whole pandemic is working and are likely progressing in the next year as well. And with this comes this kind of necessary understanding that you need to really prepare your business for this long term, and it's not a short term solution. And I'd say go there. So don't be too nervous about it. Just follow through with the ideas you have and implement everything you need.
How about on a more personal level? Do you have anyone that you look up to who you consider to be a mentor or someone that you follow, a hero, a business hero as such?
A hero. It's a good question. I have personal heroes I can talk about. So I was while I was studying for 5 years, I worked with a company called Nemetschek. They provide software around architectural software and facility management software and stuff like this. And back then I had a mentor who helped me actually to learn and understand sales. It was a woman, the only woman in a 150 male company. So it was quite impressive. And I know a lot of things, how she felt and how she still feels. So that is driving my whole understanding about diversity in sales, and in particular the gender split in sales. And Christina was her name. Christina Stisi actually influenced me a lot how she is dealing with the challenges in sales. And back then, 20 years ago, sales was a purely male job. And how she did this, she did this with grace, with intelligence, with wit, really was impressive to me. And I learned a lot from her. Not just how she is doing sales, but how she is dealing with the development of companies, the growth, the politics attached to this kind of growth, and how she always, so to say, claimed her hill and hold her ground and made sure that she is really well equipped in terms of knowledge and how she's looking at things. So this was really helpful. The second one was I worked 3 times with this Henning Ockberg, a Swedish German citizen and living in Munich, and he is a big mentor for me because he helped me on my way to progress through several levels on my own career progression, and he helped me on a personal kind of development as well as on a professional development way. And he has worked in the US several times. He's Swedish, and he has worked in Germany for US-based companies and German companies and Asian Pacific companies. His knowledge is huge. His network is vast, and he never actually. He always puts this kind of first this irony not to take yourself too serious, while he is a very, very intelligent person and actually knows business in and out. But he never was too serious about it. So you always had the opportunity to fail, and he actually always was in a situation where he always gave me great advice and never let me down, never pushed me back, never said anything, or he was always in a very natural way helping me to grow. And I owe him a lot because of this.
Well, about 14 minutes ago, I mentioned the fact that you're a fan of TikTok.
Yeah, that's right.
Couldn't miss the opportunity just to ask you why. What do you think? Sure. Why does TikTok make a difference for you?
I stayed away from TikTok a lot. I use Snapchat, and I have two girls. My girls were influencing my social media behavior a lot. Because
how old are they?
Now they're 21 and 29. So
wow.
I'm done with parenting. I'm a life consultant for them at the moment, which is fun and helps me to totally different approach these topics. But they came across with all these kind of new apps, and I didn't really tap into TikTok for a year almost, or for 2 years. But now I was a little bit, annoyed by Facebook and by Instagram and the stuff. I could see there this kind of self-validation piece, this a little bit narrow in terms of the presentation of things there, very opinionated, and not really inviting eventually, and not really helping to see other things of the life instead of just me being on the beach, which is nice, or my food, which is not really interesting, even if I'm a foodie, and I love food. But then I looked into TikTok because I saw a few things on Instagram, and it's such a waste environment for creativity. And I love how people use the provided tech from TikTok to be so creative. And I usually sit in my bed or in the morning with my coffee, and I sit there and I laugh, and I have a lot of things to think about. But it's such an impressive platform for people just to express themselves in any way, and to see how they progress, how they become better doing this, and how they use this kind of tech to just be creative and do what they want, and put their thoughts in action, and just to try to figure it out. And to see this gave me a little back this kind of, okay, social media in this way and platforms like this, they have actually a great purpose, and people can excel, they can become better, and they can learn, and you can enjoy it. It's actually really entertaining, and it's really enjoyable to see this, and it's entertaining. You can learn a lot. I learned a lot on TikTok as well about other cultures, food in particular. I follow people who are native citizens in Australia and in the US, and how they explain their culture, and in a very fun way. That's really interesting, and it helps me to learn a lot about them. It's, without any judgment, it's just an interesting way to look at their progression.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for. That really did hurtle past. We're just literally out of time. I have people waving at me to my.
I can imagine. Thank you, Bob.
That's it. No thank you so much. I really enjoyed that, Gregor. That was a fantastic session. Big thank you to so many of you who've stayed tuned with us right through to the end of the session. Stay tuned for the next session. I'm going to be speaking with Christian Kinnear, the top man in HubSpot EMEA, about HubSpot opening an office in the UK and the rise of the hybrid customer experience, which starts on the hour. So we'll take a short break. I'm going to thank Gregor again. Really good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bob. It was great and pleasure. Have fun with Christian. Send him my best.
I will. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.